All right, look, it is always such a pleasure to be joined on Bad Faith Podcast by Olyaemi Olurin. You know her, you love her. You love her from her commentary on the law. She's a public defender, a righteous advocate for working people caught up in our criminal justice system. You may have seen her on all kinds of different outlets, but most recently, she made it onto a John Oliver reel in truly exemplary fashion, doing what she does best. Welcome back to Bad Faith Podcast, Olay.
Thank you, Bri.
Now, look, I feel almost a little bit bad because after, slaying demons and advocating righteously for indigent populations and people who really need a lot of help, I have brought you here once again to talk about some nonsense.
I want to talk about mess, Bri. I want to talk about mess so bad.
Yeah. This is the thing, life is heavy. And this is like politically adjacent mess. Yes. This isn't just like random mess. This is another dating episode, although we definitely should circle back around to that one. We're here to talk about Kanye West.
Yeah.
Now, when I reached out to you, there was one Kanye West story that has now kind of evolved into a series of Kanye West story. The first prong of the Kanye mishegas was the wearing of the White Lives Matter t-shirts with Candace Owens to a fashion show about a week ago now. That spawned a whole other cycle, including a lot of really supportive videos from Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, other figures on the right, about why that was a reasonable and good political choice to make, and that it sent a very intentional message, and that Kanye West was, in fact, a very thoughtful social commentator. And then subsequently, there was Kanye West's erratic tweeting that he was going to go to DEATH-Con 3, D-A-T-H-Con 3, against the Jewish people. And subsequently, very little in the way of retractment from his supporters about all of the intervening statements. In fact, there has been a doubling down, in particular from Candace Owens, that I would love to walk us through. But just high level, what's your Kanye take right off the bat?
I'm fed up. I've been tired of Kanye. I've been over Kanye for the long. I can't even tell you where I stopped. Where I decided I was over Kanye. And I used to be a heavy Kanye fan. I used to ride or die for in high school. Listen, I was going to bat for Kanye, going to bat for Kanye. Listen, but now, then after a while, right, it went from okay, I got to passionately defend Kanye to okay, I got to defend Kanye to And then I was ooh, maybe I just won't comment on Kanye. Then it went to, oh, word, Kanye? And then it was, I am fed up. I am fed the F up. I'm so fed up with Kanye. I didn't even get upset. I saw the shirts and I was like, it seems about right.
See, that's the thing. At the juncture where we were just at the shirts, I thought this is very typical Kanye tomfoolery. I understand the point that they think that they're making. I understand that they're trying to say, look, in the Candace, look.
I have to burn these people's mess.
I gotta steel man it. Look, it was a trap. It's the same trap they've been doing since they started this All Lives Matter stuff. They all know, of course, that the whole point of Black Lives Matter is that all lives don't matter in the United States of America, as evidenced by a million different stats that I'm sure you're much more able to pull up than I am because of your embeddedness in the criminal justice system, right? No one has to make that plain, except for apparently we did, because very quickly they cottoned on to this idea that it's Black people are being the real racist here and saying somehow that Black Lives Matter meant that Black lives were superior to white lives, or, and that white lives matter too was some statement that needed to be made and that wasn't one that's tacit and built into the very fabric of the American Constitution. Okay. But it's a Kanye stunt, and I was also prepared not to pay any attention to it and not to give it any energy. And then
he was gonna go sit up in front of Tucker Carlson.
It spiraled. Okay, so let's get into some of this Tucker Carlson interview, because I think a lot of people are talking about it, but I think a lot of folks who aren't already Tucker viewers might not have watched it and truly plumb the depths of how fascinating it is.
Why is that? And that you designed that?
Yes.
Why? What does that mean?
It just represents life. I'm pro-life.
Boy, so you wear it on a badge. What kind of response do you get? And good, amen, I agree.
I don't care about people's responses. I care about the fact that there's more black babies being aborted than born in New York City at this point. That 50% of black death in America is abortion. So I really don't care about people's responses. I perform for an audience of one, and that's God.
I'm starting to see why they want to make you be quiet.
People love, you know what? It's so funny. I hate people who think they're so incredibly intelligent and deep by regurgitating very old talking points like it's new, like, ooh, Kanye said something deep. Well, listen to me. I spend most of the time in my time in America in West Virginia and Ohio. Okay. This is a very old talking point from white supremacists. And I mean, noted that. Like, I went to school, I was the only black girl in my entire class in West Virginia. I was around nothing but very vocally racist people. And I have been in the home. I can tell you the first time I ever heard that I was made to sit down and watch a documentary by some like proclaimed white supremacist child, sat me down, and one of my classmates wrote in.
How are you? You're at like a friend's house and their parents?
Yes. Your parents. Yes, child. Yes. Don't even get me started on that story. So anyway, sits me down in the office and just clicks play. And it's the whole documentary about, this whole white supremacist documentary about how abortion is there to destroy the black community and yada, yada, yada. And it's so funny, right? Because in the same breath, it's always a bunch of people that are literally racist, quite literally racist. They don't care nothing about anything that concerns the black community. They advocate against everything the black community is actively telling them they're concerned about. And then suddenly now they want to frame this anti-abortion thing as super concern for us. We're looking out for you. We worry about you. This is killing you. This is killing you. That's so powerful. So the entire community can tell you, hey, police killing us every day. We being mass incarcerated. We are under-resourced. We don't have money for health, housing, all these different things. Our communities are suffering. We are being prosecuted and persecuted. And they're like, shut up. Deal with your own. Deal with it yourself. Figure it out. That's not our problem. Oh, everything with y'all is black, race, yada, 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 yada. But the minute, oh no, not care about black people. Now it's we worry about the black people.
I mean, it is fascinating that identity politics has such a grip on conservatives at this point. And frankly, Democrats, no one's calling it out. And frankly, I think a lot of Democrats don't really have the standing to call it out. Like they don't really have the moral authority to call it out, because there's an extent to which there's a team that's going, you got to vote for us because you're black, and this is what black people do, and you're not a real black person if you don't fall in line. And there's a team that's going, well, I don't like to argue on the basis of blackness, but to court black votes or to seem as though we're not racist, at least I'm going to manufacture something or bring up a point, an issue that disproportionately hurts black people, even though we hate disparity discourse, right? The conservatives say they hate anything about disproportionality or disparity discourse, and how sometimes outcomes are just different.
Until you see them quaking in their boots about some census, until all of a sudden some census stuff, there's a prediction that the population numbers will change conveniently, and now it's about because you think the conservatives are worried there ain't enough black people.
Right. Well, right. So I mean, this is a bit of a point that I was making in my Tucker Carlson radar that everyone was so mad about. That if anybody has an argument against I'm sorry, they're in this part of ADOS that is like this. If anyone has an argument against the negative effects of immigration on the workforce and all of this, there's a lot of black people who could sit there and make that argument. But you guys are never making that argument on the behalf of those kinds of people. Very rarely was that a concern until there's this kind of anti-white racism, which is now
and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, now Tulsi Gabbard's talking about in her video announcing that she's leaving the Democratic Party. And it does seem like very familiar identity politics bell ringing that is completely uncommented upon by the right.
Yes. First of all, I don't like in general that we don't talk about identity politics enough in relation to white people. They always talk about identity politics on the left. It's only marginalized communities that are galvanized around identity politics. And that is a reflection of the fact that white people treat whiteness as a default, right? The only reason why, the rest of us are galvanized around, I'm galvanized around being black, Latinos are galvanized around that, the LGBT community around this, but we're going to act like the entire Republican Party is not galvanized around whiteness. That's not an identity construct.
And here's the thing, here's what it could look like if it were different, just for if people are thinking incredulously, I don't see how that's identity politics. There's a world where Kanye West and whomever could be having a substantive conversation about why it is that people are having so many unwanted pregnancies, why they don't have access to birth control, perhaps, why they feel as though they perhaps are not economically able to support a pregnancy that might be wanted in a different circumstance, and how to have social programs that could intervene to bring down the abortion rate, because nobody wants there to be a high abortion rate. And frankly, the abortion rate is also declining, especially among teens, in a way that is never really noted in these kinds of examples. But that is not what's happening here, because that kind of an approach and that kind of intervention would be one that might disproportionately affect Black people, but also inure to the benefit of all kinds of people who are struggling with these issues. It is addressing the root causes of a lot of these things, which are this commingling of race and class that is often the case. But that's not the conversation they want to have. They don't want to have a conversation about poverty.
Right.
They don't want to have a conversation about access to healthcare. They don't want to have a conversation about social safety net supports that could enable families to actually raise their children.
Right. And it also, I just feel like we have, in general, only because we're here and we have to talk about it. Am I, even engaging with Kanye's ideas? Because I believe all of this is completely disingenuous and it's just political theater and politics and distraction, and Kanye trying to ingratiate himself to whomever he needs for whatever is happening behind the scenes. Nonetheless, I find it interesting when you have a community that has been plagued with the same issues for generations, right? Everything that as a collective, Black people in America have to deal with poverty, we have to deal with incarceration, we have to deal with all these different things. In so many ways, we are already under-resourced. The people that we have here do not have enough. So you have to explain to me and articulate to me, what is this sudden concern now? Oh, there aren't enough Black people? Is that what you're saying? Oh, this many Black people have been lost. No, I need to hear an argument. Explain it to me, because according to y'all, make it make sense, because these are the same communities. You're talking to you're ingratiating yourself with the Tucker Carlsons and them, who are constantly saying we have too many unwed mothers, too many babies, too many people in the welfare system, all these things that you're saying. And then suddenly now your issue is there are too many of us. And what also it begs the question, what are you doing for the ones that are here? Because all I see is a bunch of rich people that don't do nothing, to help communities. And what are you doing? What are you doing to massively change what's happening in the Black community? Or are you just becoming a billionaire, selling your expensive things and peddling it back to us, and then being in these rooms with these people communicating old antiquated ideas at the expense of our people, and then pretending like it's new and it's revolutionary because you the first person to call yourself a free thinker?
Yeah, I mean, that last part, I think, is why I kind of scoffed at that moment, because rather than really weigh in on what Kanye says, at several points in the interview, Tucker just kind of sighs and chuckles and says something like, this is a free speech platform. We're not in the censorship business here. Yeah, you can say what you want to say. No one's going to cancel you for saying that. And if you listen carefully, there's very little in the way of actually co-signing the substance of what Kanye says, and a lot of kind of self-congratulation for being a platform that allows Kanye to say what he says.
Because he doesn't
here.
need to co-sign it. He's brought Kanye as a Black spokesperson. That's what it is. It's very clear. Kanye is there to regurgitate the viewpoints they already have processed and recycled around. That's what he's there to do. He's there to say, this guy got it. Look at this Black guy that says it. Oh, we like him now. We'll bring you over on the team. And also, there's something to, they try to entice you to this game of, okay, it might serve me, it might serve my personal individual interests, and maybe, forget the collective. They try to entice you by what treatment you're going to receive. So it's like, oh, let's treat him real good. Look, we're nice here. There's a platform here. We treating you real good, Kanye. And so there's something to that, because they also are hoping to whoever is watching this, whatever other kind of, Black people they could get to say, hey, look, come on over here. We treat you nice on death row. Like that's what they're looking to do. So.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't want to minimize the extent to which you can think it's foolish. Like we can think it's foolish and ill-advised and all of that, but there are people watching who contrast the treatment, the completely put upon, superficial, whatever, but nice, kind, gracious, almost deferential treatment that folks like Kanye get in these kinds of spaces, as compared to the, Obama calling Kanye West an asshole. Like, and they take away from that at the very least. And this is a lot of the white people said when Trump was running as well. At very least, even if he's lying to me, he has the decency to do it with a smile on his face and to have to pretend like he respects where I'm coming from. And in the ain't black, you ain't blackness of the alternative, I'm really concerned that that's the juxtaposition that's going to get queued up increasingly, especially as we look to races like what's going on in
Briahna, that's not
Georgia.
real. People are nice to you when you're saying, people are nice to you when you're playing their game and you say what you want to say. Nobody, like, if we compare these specific to incidents, but let's look at the whole world we've been in, Republicans and that side of the fence talk crazy about Kanye. In fact, white people in general in America talked crazy about Kanye for a long time. They're being nice to Kanye right now. If
But
tomorrow,
of course,
that's all that
Olay.
is.
Of course it's put upon. But
Yeah.
you can ignore it or not. But look in the comment section of that video right now. And look at how many people reacted to some of the posturing that's going on in Georgia around the black male vote polling issues in particular. Now, of course, the overwhelming majority of male voters in Georgia are still Democrats. But because there's a gap between black male voters and black female voters, there has been a robust conversation emerging both in the state and online about what that means and what's going on with black voters. And a lot of the attitude has been, you guys are dummies, you guys don't care about black women, yada, yada, yada. Well, let's just keep going and watch a little bit more of that video if we can stomach it.
I think I started to really feel this need to express myself on another level when Trump was running for office and I liked him.
Yes.
And every single person in Hollywood, from my ex-wife to my mother-in-law to my manager at that time to, my so-called friends / handlers around me, told me, like, if I said that I like Trump, that my career would be over, that my life would be over. They said stuff like people get killed for wearing a hat like that. They threatened my life. They put my life. They basically said that I would be killed for wearing the hat. I had someone call me last night and said anybody wearing a White Lives Matter shirt is going to be greenlit, and that means that they're going to beat them up if they wear it. And I'm like, okay, green light me then.
First of all, we've been one Kanye to shut the F up about everything. About everything, okay? Everything! It's not just, he's just doing this. We've been telling Kanye to shut up, and he ain't never stopped talking. Not once. Not ever. Not for a little bit. Just every way. Maybe it's because you stay in our face. We want to be taken out the group chat, okay? It's not just... It's not like it's the one thing. They act like we have not. It's so crazy for it to present like we don't rock with Kanye because nobody makes more excuses for Kanye than us. Nobody makes more excuses than Kanye. We even read it. People do not even talk about Kanye without first saying, he ain't been right since his mama died. You know what I mean? We love to talk about Kanye like our cousin. We have to he's on touch. He have stuff going on. That's how we deal with Kanye. So this whole foolishness, I feel like we've been trying to throw Kanye. You think there's any other black person that can do the things that Kanye has done and we just play crazy every time we play? Like, I didn't hear it. Just no, I don't know what Kanye is talking about. We all do it. We all do it. I know this because I have yet to part with Watch This Room. So.
Well, is this the kind of the argument that Kanye is making though? That when he raised whatever concern that he says, let's say this is a version of Kanye that's before getting on this particular abortion tip or his evangelical tip. But, that he was never taken seriously, that people didn't credit him enough. People, not black people in particular, but nobody took him seriously. The fashion industry didn't take him seriously. All he's ever wanted is a voice. And at the end of the day, Tucker Carlson is the one that swooped in, was smart enough to realize that you could get him on his side by offering them bare minimum.
Swooped in, save what? Don't have a voice. Kanye is one of the most. What you mean? I know what. What you mean? Don't have a voice. What do you mean? You know how absurd it is for us to be listening to one of the most listened to, followed celebrities and public figures, period, in the world. We pay attention to this. I should understand this. I got cases, serious, important things. You do important stuff. I do important stuff. They talk about all kind of serious stuff. In the middle of the day, addressing what Kanye was talking about, because he listened to Kanye. This is not okay. You on Tucker Carlson now, but we've been commenting and following every piece of foolishness he said on Instagram, on Twitter, in the song, to his voice
on TMZ,
everywhere.
That big break. I feel like the break with black folks and Kanye was the slavery was a choice bit, and that happened on the one and only TMZ.
I'm like, we listening to Kanye. Like, I don't know. It's absurd. This whole idea. I can't even lean into this annoying victimization. It's so absurd to be listening to this man act like this and pretend like it's just mind-boggling. It's just absurd. Like, oh, nobody. But so Kanye was having a hard time. Kanye getting his message out.
This is why I guess some part of me is frustrated because I also remember this clip, and there's a part of me that wishes when he articulated these kinds of feelings of unsettledness that someone from the left had swooped in. And if he's going to be a useful idiot for someone, if he's going to be a puppet, if he needs someone just to sit down and listen, I wish he had been funneled in this direction.
The Democrats were willing to take the chance of not winning as long as the conglomerate could be completely in control of, completely in control. You know what I'm saying? That Bernie.
Yeah.
Bernie would have won.
He would have won.
This is, I wore a trumpet. I'm saying like Bernie is a superhero.
Yeah.
You know, and
he would be the perfect person to be the opposite of what Trump represents.
Yeah.
He's an anti-capitalist. He's a guy who's a social democrat.
But you know the problem? They couldn't control Bernie. Because
no, you can't control him. He's been so consistent his whole life.
So what I'm saying is they literally kicked. If this doesn't say something, it's like they kicked the superhero. You know what I'm saying? They
want to control. It's the same thing they did with Tulsi Gabbard. But Bernie was interesting because he's this democratic socialist, because he's got these ideas that are scary to capitalism.
So I watched that interview not thinking anything of it. Like it was like a few months before the election. I was unemployed. I was just watching people's videos. And I was shocked, not only that had happened, but that no one had said, like no one had mentioned it. Like no one who had a left kind of a politics seemed to have watched it, clipped it, put it on YouTube, said anything about it. And that's not how the right operates. Like it or not, they seem to be getting some significant cultural traction. And Candace Owens says this all the time. She says that politics follows culture, and Democrats were right to care a lot about culture all of these years. And now we're playing a race from behind. And they are playing that race hard. And they are tapping into figures like Kanye West. They are trying harder to get into all of these cultural issues, understanding that those can win them elections, even when they're completely not, they're issues like abortion and, their basic economic policies are completely unpopular. They can still win if they focus on these kinds of issues and they get these kind of figures to push these kind of culture dividing lines. And meanwhile, you get a freebie like this, and there's no one reaching out to say, oh, okay, you have a critique of the duopoly. Instead of putting a MAGA hat on, maybe you should consider developing some of these halfway decent points you have about systemic failure in our country.
First of all, Kanye, like, I don't know what outlets we tune into, but everything Kanye does, those clips and stuff, Shade Room, Black people were discussing it. Like, that he's engaged with. Like, I've seen Briahna, hold on, let me just say this. Also, Kanye, let's stop acting like the only thing that happens is what we see, because he's on Tucker Carlson, or you see where he chooses to go. He's talking about Joe Rogan, and we have no idea what Democrats and who behind the scenes or what leftist people have reached out to him. We also know Kanye has the connections to be wherever he wants to be. If Kanye wants to go set up and go on a leftist platform, he wants to go sit and go talk to about Democrats or connect with these kinds of people, he can, and he does what he wants to do. Just in the same breath that he wants to be on Tucker Carlson, he'd be on Joe Rogan, he goes and drink champs when he feels like it. He wants to go, he'll go on teams. He goes where he wants to. So there's not a lack of that. Also, there are people, like all kinds of people, especially when he says right, wrong, or even when he says the wrong things and those galvanized, the first thing they do, all of John Legend and them in the past and stuff, reach out and try to, let's talk, let's have a conversation, let's pull you in. Did people do that to Kanye? So
I think that you're right, and we have some evidence that we should get into that liberals have reached out to Kanye, but in the same way that something like that happens on the right, he wears a MAGA hat and suddenly he becomes the right's hero. He says something like that, and it's a non-nothing. And part of that is because the left doesn't have a media apparatus the same way that liberals do. So who's going to animate it?
It's also a conversation about integrity. People know Kanye. Why would be? First of all, I think there are a lot of people that feel like you need to stop platforming and rallying around celebrities for exactly this reason. They're very often uninformed, problematic, all over the place, and doing stuff because of their own interest and to serve those. And I think a lot of people, if you ask somebody like me, I don't galvanize around any celebrity, any of their clip saying good, bad, whatever, because you can't trust them or their political school of thought or to stay consistent. And I don't like a world where we respond to celebrities and foolishness. That's how we end up with nonsense like Donald Trump being the president. So one way or another, I'm not going to do it in that respect. I think it's destructive. And you're going to respond?
Yeah. I mean, I just say that I don't know that I agree. I think it's unwise to let one side play a game and not participate in it whatsoever, especially if there's not an alternative pitch that's being made in a clear way by the Democratic Party.
We should embrace what we should be trying to turn Kanye into a figure. I think also there's a conversation to be had about integrity, and they could be mad about this, but the right is incredibly inconsistent and hypocritical when it comes to any kind of ideology, because they're in it to win it. And I'm telling you what I think about it. I'm not mad at it in terms of being in it to win it, right? Like, I'm not mad at it. Like, I'm not surprised that the Herschel Walker stuff would happen and they would be like, we don't care, we need to win. I'm not surprised at stuff like that. Yeah. I'm not surprised at them coming out and saying, oh, it's about state rights, and then trying to introduce a ban. Like, no, because I know that they're inconsistent and stuff, because they're not galvanized around a lot of these these pretext reasons that they give us. And that's what I truly believe. So to me, it's not surprising. Yes, they would take a figure like Kanye, because all that really matters is the purpose he serves right now, what he's saying right now. And I believe that. But I think oftentimes, a lot of people ideologically on the left in the belief system, that matters, the consistency, the integrity, that being challenged. So they're not going to go to somebody like Kanye who flip-flops all over the place depending on what season he's in and how it serves him. Because Kanye will say this, but just two seconds later, whenever he's having some major falling out with Kim again, all of a sudden he's going to be a black man and talking about how he's treated and persecuted specifically because of this. It's the whole narrative will change, and Kanye does that. So I think he's inconsistent. I don't think we should galvanize around Kanye.
I think the fundamental problem here is that there is no integrity among Democrats, and they are playing the game, but in just a terrible way. So, for example, I got an email yesterday, the day before, about a West Wing live stream hosted by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, because it's a Veep West Wing crossover Wisconsin Dems event. Why I'm on a list server for the Wisconsin Dems, I don't know. But the kind of ideology that is being lifted up and the kind of cultural figures that are lifted up by Dems to incentivize voters to vote are fictional characters from a show that went off the air 20 years ago that had terrible politics, that in the fever dream of that show, the best they could come up with is a better world is like marginally possible, but only by compromising with Republicans all the time and bipartisanship. Yay, whoopity-doo. Instead of look, you can say what you want, and we should say what we want about Kanye West more broadly. That's what we're doing in this podcast. But if he gets on a very popular podcast, the most popular podcast in America, and says we have a rigged democracy where the two-party system is not being fair to candidates that could potentially have captured the energy of somebody like Donald Trump and done so in a more constructive way than Donald Trump did, there's a kind of politics that says we're going to use that kind of a clip to our advantage, and there's a kind of politics that say we're going to ignore it because it's better to lose to Trump than to validate an ideology like Bernie Sanders.
I just don't quite I guess you got to give me what your central thesis is, Brie, because it feels like what do you? Because in my mind, Kanye don't matter. Like, let me just get you in my position. In terms of integrity, in terms of his view set, everything that he's spewing is completely harmful. He is spewing nothing but white nationalism. He's been spewing for years now very, very harmful, negative rhetoric towards the Black community, specifically Black women, even what he's done recently, and forget even the nonsense he does in his personal life. But that's what he's been doing. He's now moved all the way over from his anti-Blackness into leaning into white nationalist spaces and into anti-Semitism. That's the case. Right now, that's where Kanye is at. Kanye is on anti-Semitism hill right now. So what is the position? What are we supposed to be doing around Kanye? Because my position is Kanye is not, for these reasons, Kanye is a problematic, unhelpful figure, and that is why people have no interest in rallying around him. So I feel like this point you're making is like, what, we should have been nice to the Kanye, we should have capitalized on the moment where Kanye said one good thing or something, because I want to acknowledge that we have high periods in time in history, we rallied around Kanye. When George Bush don't like Black people, blah, 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 we was behind Kanye. When they were mad at Kanye about Taylor Swift and stuff, we were behind Kanye. Even when Kanye made his slavery, we was so mad. He was still doing nimble gymnastics, trying to, what he meant was, yada, yada, yada. Kanye stuck with the church.
Really? Because I think that was the breaking point. And rightly so was the breaking point.
Was it the breaking point, though? I know the Black community, even, I have friends, we make exceptions and carve-outs for Kanye. People will be they will be on their soapbox, canceling every Black person with a slightly problematic view, or whatever you say, anything that could be interpreted in the slightest way as chicken jive. But we get to Kanye, we're like, we be mad even when we condemn him, but we go right there and we listen to the concert, we letting it rock, we slide it, we'll criticize it. But Kanye ain't missed the beat. Kanye's still making money. We still turning up all his concerts. We still supporting him. We still asking for him to do a verses with Drake. We're still doing all that. We support Kanye. We've never left Kanye.
So I guess the question is, you say people aren't rallying behind Kanye, but of course we do have this evidence now because Kanye released his text of people trying to reach out to him and stop him from saying destructive things that I think are rightly going to impugn his legacy. So we have this text thread from Puff P. Diddy, and this is where it starts to get into the phase 2 of this drama. So if phase 1 was wearing the White Lives Matter shirts, phase 2 is the tweet that got him banned from Twitter, in which and you can hear, so sorry, you can hear aspects of this trickle out in other parts of the Tucker Carlson interview, where he talks about how frustrated he was that when he was out to dinner with Jared Kushner, he found out that Jared Kushner owned more of his wife's lingerie undergarments brand Skims than he does. He felt some territorialness about that. He felt like it was inappropriate. He didn't describe very specifically why he felt that was inappropriate.
Wait, who on what?
Jared Kushner, I guess there's this Jared Kushner, Carly Kloss. Jared Kushner's brother dated Carly Kloss and is in the fashion industry.
Okay.
And it turns out that the Kushners own a piece of Skims.
Okay.
And own like a bigger chunk of Skims than Kanye does. And he felt some kind of way about his wife's underwear brand being owned by someone else that he was casually at dinner with, having more basically financial stake in his wife's own brand.
You hear these rich people business, man? Continue.
So later on, of course, he does his infamous anti-Semitic tweet that has set the world on stage. And
that's what this was. That's that what spawned this?
It's not what spawned it, but if this is what I'm saying, when you watch all of the videos and hear him dropping clues about feeling like he's being controlled, feeling like people won't let him say what he wants to say, feeling frustrated about who has more than he has. It feels like it's all spiraling in this way. So obviously he tweets the following. I might as well just quote it directly, so I can't be accused of being unfair in any way. His Twitter account has subsequently been locked after he tweeted he was going DEFCON 3 on all caps Jewish people, adding, "I can't be anti-Semitic because Black people are actually Jew." Also, the tweet continued, "You guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who ever opposes your agenda."
Oh Lord! Like I just again.
Do you think this is going to be the end?
We have to. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's the crazy part. No, it's not. No, it's not. We are going to. No, it's not. We Twitter Black people are going to criticize Kanye for about maybe a few more days, a week, for however long he keeps doing foolishness. Right? That's what's going to happen. We all going to talk. Everybody going to be in the shade. Everybody be sick of Kanye. Be sick of Kanye. Be sick of Kanye. Be sick of Kanye. Kanye's going to drop an album. You're going to be like, Kanye is a genius. Kanye's going to put out a little docu-series. You're going to be like, ooh, Kanye real talented. That's how it's going to be. Or Kanye's going to get into a more trivial squabble. He'll lay off of politics for a little bit. That's what he does. He'll lay off and he'll just go back to his regular antics and we'll go back to regular defending him. That's how it happens, right? We were mad at him when he did the Slavery is Black. We were mad at him when he put on the MAGA hat. We were mad at him when he went talking about he's running for president. Like, you remember that happened? Like, and when we were mad at him for that nonsense. And then you know what we did? Continue to rock with Kanye. He went on Drink Champs and we were like, we're here for it. We love it. The minute he started his foolishness on Pete Davidson, everybody, they here for the jokes, right? He put on the music. So like, it's just not real. We have to stop. Like, it's absurd in a country, in a world with all these problems, all of these actual people whose voices are not heard, actually silenced people with no platform, people begging, hoping that this story get out. We are listening to what I believe is a billionaire, if not billionaire adjacent, complaining to crap about what?
This was fascinating to me because in some ways I thought, okay, Kanye West explicitly says he's going to war on the Jewish people. There's no subtext to this. There's no way you can kind of read the anti-Semitism out of this one. It's a very clear valence to this bad boy. But you're right about how the defenses started to come down the pike because Sarah Silverman found herself trending online because she tweeted out something along the lines of why only
Jews.
Right. Only Jewish people are confusing about
talk about anti-Semitism. The rest of us, people felt the implication was that she's saying the rest of specifically Black people, they felt like, especially because of her own track record in history, are either more problematic, more anti-Semitic, and also don't defend, which is a problem for so many reasons. First of all, it's not based in anything factual or historical, and she's also probably not the best messenger herself. But importantly, Black people, we've been sounding the alarms on Kanye for a while. And also, and I'm like, if she was tapped into the right or any Black people, let's not even say the right circles, we're search for it. If she had any Black people on the timeline, algorithm, whatever it is, you would find we're quick to call out Kanye on anti-Semitism. We are, and nobody had to convene us to do it either.
This was interesting. It's not exactly a defense of Kanye, but Sarah Silverman, I think, gave people who were perhaps frustrated by what they might feel is like a disproportionality in this critique, an outlet to say, like, this is the problem, but you're not the one to opine. And it's not quite defending Kanye, but as a way to put some place to put your energy that's not a critique of Kanye West.
I think the argument, I've seen, and I don't, it's not that I don't think I think it's legitimate. But, people talking about the fact that, okay, this, when he makes the anti-Semitic comments, and all of a sudden white people are now complaining about him in the way that we were, or he gets suspended from Twitter, but he wasn't when he was getting all these anti-Black comments. I've seen that critique, and I think
that's the Dave Chappelle argument, by the way.
Yeah. And again, it's not that I don't think it's true, but I do not. One thing I don't like to do. I don't like to play the game because if something is legitimately hateful, it's discriminatory. It is prejudice, and that deserves to be checked. I'm not going to act like it. I'm not going to deflect from the validity of that by saying, "Oh, you see, when they didn't do it for Black people, that's true. Yeah, for sure." But also, I think something that's worth factoring in there is that Black people come to we don't want Kanye. Like, people, we don't truly want Kanye canceled. That's not what we're trying to do. We criticize Kanye. We want Kanye to stop his mess, but we don't want Kanye out of here. We as a community have not thrown Kanye away. That's just the truth. So we're not gonna, of course, like, and if you're honest about the things that happen in our community, our intra-communal stuff, we got a lot of problematic commentators, a lot of them that we let, a lot. The shade room is chock full of them, and we have a lot more grace for problematic, aggressive behavior once it's intra-communal. So we are not asking to get rid of Kanye. Now, if Kanye goes and jumps out of left field and says anti-Semitic comments, what are we gonna do for you, for Jewish community? Say they finished with you. I can't do nothing but you. But that I can't tell them what kind of punishment they're supposed to give you, because we didn't give you the harsher punishment for our thing. If we want to cancel Kanye, we cancel Kanye, but we don't want to. So the Jewish people have every reason to respond. If something is anti-Semitic, which it undoubtedly is, and like, not only is it anti-Semitic as it is, but I knew it when I talked to my friend who never cares to advocate about anybody else's issues but Black people's. When he said, "Oh no, I mean, you can't say nothing about that's anti-Semitic," I was like, "Oh shit, that's anti-Semitic." Like, there was no doubt when he said that.
Yeah, you can't. There's no sugarcoating death. Death is obviously what was meant, but DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. So
it's not even that I mean, that's, but it's not like I think he actually wants to go endanger Jewish people, but specifically, I'm like, it's the trope of the, like, Jewish people are controlling the world. That is such a old, harmful, anti-Semitic. I mean, my God, I was like, we're digging deep in our bag.
This is interesting. I want to go now to the Candace Owens clip, because I really thought that Candace Owens and some of these people who had so recently been advocating for Kanye, obviously Candace was standing with Kanye with the White Lives Matter shirts on when they were at the fashion show, would do some kind of a heel turn, would equivocate a little bit once Kanye went full crazy on Twitter, and they didn't. They didn't
tell you all of these people are without. Y'all keep trying to debate me on that. I keep trying to tell you these people are without integrity. Oh my God, I keep telling you.
I don't think anybody's trying to argue that they have integrity, but I honestly did think that, look, there are groups that are easier or harder to make fun of in the United States. I think a lot of the Asian Americans felt in the Stop Asian Hate moment that was a kind of a apotheosis of a lot of feeling ignored from various concerns. I always say this, the last bastion of racist TV commercial that was allowed in this country was the kind of like nerdy, wimpy, sometimes he also for some reason does kung fu, accented Asian English person saying something about fried chicken or what have you. Like, these commercials were everywhere up until like the mid-aughts. And you could do that in shows. You could, if you watch any like old comedy, Joe Rogan type movie, the interview, like, it's all highly problematic. And so, people get away with murder in a lot of different instances, and I don't think the buck is necessarily going to stop there. But, there's a lot of well-developed advocacy around Jewish issues in the United States. And I thought that this, no, they're absolutely going to have to backtrack on this one. However,
he's questioning motives. He is allowed to do that. But of course, it was the tweet that he sent that really got people motivated. So let's read that tweet. Kanye West wrote, and then subsequently had his Twitter locked, when he said, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. The funny thing is I actually can't be anti-Semitic because Black people are actually Jew also." You guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who opposes your agenda. That was the tweet. And people subsequently demanded that the tweet be taken down for anti-Semitism. Now, if you are an honest person, you did not think this tweet was anti-Semitic. You did not think that he wrote this tweet because he hates or wants to genocide Jewish people. This does not represent the beginning of the Holocaust. That's if you're an honest person, you'll meet that. You will admit that, right? If you're an honest person, when you read this tweet, you had no idea what the hell he was talking about. I had no idea when I read this tweet what the hell he was talking about. This tweet inspired questions, not answers. First and foremost, what is DEFCON 3? Did he mean DEFCON 3, which would be a military defense position, not an offense for those of you that are offended, a military defense position? Is he tweeting this because he's reading the Newsweek headline calling him an anti-Semitic? Is he angry because he can't believe that he's not free to talk about people in his life who happen to be Jewish, right? Without being accused of anti-Semitism? Is he saying, I'm not going to shut up and I'm going to keep tweeting and I'm going to keep calling these people out, referring to his friends that he feels slighted by? Is he talking about Jared Kushner and Josh Kushner?
We have to get the fuck out of here. No, we have to. We have to stop. No, the madness has to stop because she's not dead ass. She's not like, you can't listen. We have to start talking about how people are performers. A lot of this gig, that's what it is. A whole bunch of performers performing. That's the role. She's performing. And listen, give that girl whatever tomato. Boom! Like, what are you talking about? Wait, not. I can't even humor it. Like, what are we saying? What? Oh, it inspired questions. Girl, if you don't shut up. If you don't shut up, yes, it inspired questions. Where is his doctor? Where are the people who need to help him? Where are his people? That's what it inspired. Those are the questions I have. Who was his internet provider? Who out of tweet schedules? What? Those are the questions that I have. When was the last time Kanye was in touch with his therapist? This is what I want to know. Absurd. And I'm not gonna. No.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing.
And I'm gonna address that with that ensemble. I don't know why my girl is in like a puffer jacket version of a Bob Ross painting, but I can't take it. I cannot take it, and she cannot take herself seriously. I know. Listen, Candace got a whole woman be like, I can't believe I said that shit today. Like she has to be at home just like, I can't believe I can't even take myself serious. Like that is.
Well, that's it. She gets away with it. She marshals his defense. That's like a 45-minute video, and I'd say at least half of it is dedicated to this. And she opens with this kind of like cold open where she says, I happen to have if you were to ask me who is the cheapest person that I know, before this year, I would have said some friend I had in college, and then I would have said some guy I dated, and then I would have said so-and-so. But if you ask me this year, I'll tell you it's this new acquaintance of mine who happens to be Jewish. Now, all those other people weren't Jewish, and so if I had said that they were the cheapest person I knew, you wouldn't have a problem with it.
Briahna,
now that the cheapest person I know happens to be Jewish, you guys are all going to say it's anti-Semitic, and that's what's happening to Kanye.
With that bullshit? Is that
that
what
is,
you said?
I have done a very honest recitation of what she said.
This is the problem when we keep telling people they're smart because they can read and write. No, honestly, like. Candace is a performer. Maybe if she was an actress, if we were having a conversation about acting, then we could have a conversation about the evaluation of that skill set. But all this other nonsense, I really hate the fact that what they do is, people that are racist and bigots and the kind of people that she panders to, and they could feel however they want to feel about it, but the kind of people that she's out here, that's why she gets away with it, because that's who she's talking to, and that's the foolishness that they want to hear, right? They do this thing where any Black person who speaks well or articulate, they're so impressed with it because they have such a caricature idea of what we're like in the first place. They're like, so deep, so smart. Look at her. She strings sentences together. And then she goes around here saying stupid shit on a stupid ass soapbox that don't make no sense. And then we're supposed to, I will not humor this. What? Oh, if I happen to say this stereotyping, like we just aren't allowing for nuance, intellectual deep dive, and girl, whatever. If you don't get the hell out of here, like.
Well, let me ask you this, Ole. Like, obviously Kanye, you can't get away from the anti-Semitism. I don't know how you can dig him out of this. Puff Daddy reaches out to him and says, can we just talk? Kanye responds saying, "This ain't a game. I'm going to use it as an example to show the Jewish people that told you to call me that no one can threaten or influence
The
me."
Jewish people that told you to call me.
Yes. So, like, this is
man
not about one tweet. This is not an isolated thing. This man very much believes that he is.
He's talking about the Jewish people like the Illuminati son. You hear him?
He feels like he's being handled. Now, I don't doubt that people want to handle Kanye West. He's worth a lot of money and he's saying a lot of dumb stuff that's burning his entire career down. His choice to tie that to Jewish people, I don't understand this. Like, I don't understand where this is coming from.
Because I understand it, because if you're ingratiating yourself with white nationalism, as if that is the current box you've decided to put yourself on top of the soapbox from, anti-Semitism is in keeping with that. And that's why, to me, again, I don't care about a discussion. Nothing has to be genuine. It's not about whether or not in Kanye's heart, he's anti-Semitic or anything like that, or, that's not the dive. Is he saying and spewing anti-Semitism? This is not a call. Like, things have real impact. Something being discriminatory, something being hateful, something being bigoted is that regardless. I don't really care if Kanye in his spirit or souls is anti-Semitic, but I care a lot about the fact that he's intentionally and deliberately spewing anti-Semitism and he's ingratiating himself with these people. I don't care about what the deep dive you want to do on it is. The reality is it is anti-Semitic. Anybody with common sense knows that. They've said that. Like, there's no way. I mean, what are we doing? What kind of nimble gymnastics are we doing? I don't know about y'all, but I'm not that athletic. I'm not going to do it. All right. This is anti-Semitic. And just the fact, look at who your cheerleaders are. Let me tell you something right now, Briahna. If I ever in this life go online, go on Twitter, and I say anything on earth that the entire my usual community is mad at, and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and them come to defend me, I retract. Withdrawn. I'm wrong. I gotta go back to the drawing board. I missed something. I missed a couple readings. Y'all get me together. Call me in, because I'm fucking up. That's my position on that one.
Well, I mean, it is frustrating because there are these moments where, for instance, Katie Halper was just fired from The Hill for, I think, inarguably doing a radar that was critical of Israel as a political entity, not as a religious entity, and for defending Rashida Tlaib for statements that she made in that vein that was within subject to a pylon where everyone called her anti-Semitic, including Democratic Party leadership. And a lot of people who, frankly, I think are not going to be so quick to call out Kanye West. And I think it is very frustrating because there are, of course, bad faith arguments that are made, that the accusation of anti-Semitism is thrown around very loosely in a way that I find to be increasingly dangerous in a world where there really are these white supremacist movements afoot.
Yeah, I agree with. I agree with. Listen. I 100% agree that when it comes to critiquing what Israel does in terms of Palestine, you can't say anything in pretty much all of these spaces. It's not like it's just The Hill or just right-wing places or whatever. It's the same is true of left-wing places and stuff. It has not become the popular opinion, or at least people do not allow the nuance in the conversation when it comes to speaking up for Palestine. It does get deflated or just watered down to everything is anti-Semitic automatically. I agree. And as far as Katie, and I don't even know what my position would be, even if I was as a Black woman. I can't imagine trying to criticize the Black community or a Black country for something that they're doing or something, and people telling me I can't say that. Like, you would think Katie would have a little bit more. Katie would have the grace to be able to.
Well, I think it's because many people have argued that it's because Katie is Jewish that they don't want her doing it, because she does have more credibility and isn't as vulnerable. I mean, of course, people will still call her a self-hating Jew and all the things that they say, but like, she has more credibility than someone like me doing it, so I'm allowed to say it. Yeah, I'm allowed to say it because they know they can always get rid of me.
But are we really allowed? I mean, I don't mean we as in like me and you or the Hill or anything like that. And there's for record, I don't work for nobody still. But Mark Lamont Hill was fired when he spoke up for Palestine too, and that's from CNN. I mean, are we really even too? It's not like, I think in academic and certain circles, obviously, I mean, the people that is my political community or the people I work with, like Free Palestine is the position, and those are the people that I know. But I mean, in terms of just what is mainstream media,
I guess by allowed I meant it's not as dangerous if I do. And therefore things can be taken, action can be taken after the fact as opposed to preemptively, in the way that it seemed to be preemptively. They didn't even want Katie's radar to air at all. But the point I was just going to make is that when things like that happen, when people are canceled and accused unfairly of, you could call that a kind of weaponized identity politics if you want to, the kind of which the right often criticizes. Those folks, the Candace Owenses, the Tucker Carlsons, were not standing up for Katie. So to your kind of joke about like if I ever do anything that causes them to come to my defense, I can think of a number of things that ideologically they should come to the defense of various people on the left over, but they just don't.
But again, because we have to have an honest conversation about what they're truly galvanized around. If you believe, and I think you might, and my position in there, so we don't need to debate the substance of it. But if you believe that they're really truly rallied around all this censorship and free speech, and if you believe that's what it's truly about, really, then the right to spew their bigotry and their nonsense, which is what it really is to tea, then yeah, you're gonna be surprised when they don't go and jump up for the Katie helpers. But if you're like me, who doesn't believe that is the case, I'm not surprised that the right and Tucker Carlson and them didn't jump up to defend Katie when the
question isn't one of surprise or what your expectations are, and the question isn't again what Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens or Greta von Susteren or any of them believe in their hearts. I think it is true that a number of voting people who watch TV very much are invested in those issues. They've been trained to be invested in those issues. They've been told that those are the issues that should determine how they vote. And one side is posturing as the safekeeper, the gatekeeper of those issues, and the person who is the vanguard on those subjects. And the other side is largely silent about those things, or kind of openly happy to say, oh, I want to censor this. Oh, I want to do a disinformation campaign. Oh, I'm going to be the czar of this, that, and the other, and not being really transparent about good faith mistakes that have been made, not to mention bad faith mistakes that have been made in coverage. And the effect of that is that human beings, the voting public, is going to keep getting fooled, and Tucker Carlson's show is going to become increasingly the most watched show in America. And I think that that's a problem. I pay attention to these people because what they're doing is working. And my feeling is that we can ignore it and hope that the Democratic Party gets their act together and magically manages to right the ship, or go try to put our own kind of messaging out there that helps address the kinds of arguments that I think are largely getting ignored by the corporate left. That's my only position. But before we go, unless you want, I want to give you a chance to respond if you want.
You know my position. I think this is always going to be our divergence on this. I think there's a sincerity that you approach, you think that they have in some respects, that I just don't. I think there's a lot of an analysis that you give them. Yeah, I hear you.
I'm telling you, there's no sincerity from Tucker. It's not about.
No, I don't mean Tucker. I'm saying I don't mean the actors, but I mean even the issues that you feel like they're galvanized around this community, like they're Republican, their voter base. I don't think a lot of that is real, and I think a lot of the time you see that when you look at the inconsistency with certain respects. That's what I'm saying. But I understand your position, but I just don't. There's a lot of the analysis. There's a lot, let me put it this way. If there are certain steps to an analysis that you do, you can go to the fifth step. And a lot of the times I'm not engaging that second step because I just don't think it's genuine. A lot of it is just not genuine to me. And I feel like I see that play out very often when it actually comes to, if we use an example like Katie, we use these examples. So that's where I'm at with that. But what was you were going to give me another point.
Yeah, just before we left, I mean, I do have to say, like, we are in a moment where an anti-war sentiment is, I think, sincerely popular to a lot of people. And it is rightly so. I think that a lot of the left is frustrated that, whereas in the past he has been very reliable as an advocate for peace, even people like Bernie Sanders are relatively quiet on the issue. The squad members have all voted in lockstep for increased funding to Ukraine every time. And not to mention funding for the Iron Dome and any number of other military aid packages without any commentary, without like any anti-war movement whatsoever. And at the same time, we saw Barack Obama rise to prominence in part because he was willing to call out the Iraq war. He was very much running as an anti-war candidate in 2008. I think that's part of why he got the support that he did and was able to win. And then
Obama?
Yeah.
You feel like because
it was inauthentic. But he didn't vote for the Iraq War. He was able to run on that, and people liked it. Then came Hillary Clinton, who had all of he was able to beat her the first time because she had the opposite record and was not sufficiently contrite. Then she comes around the second time. That baggage didn't go in anywhere. She didn't apologize for it. Nothing happened. Here comes Donald Trump in bad faith, talking about being an anti-interventionist candidate, going up against Hillary Clinton, who was sitting there. Obama blamed her for the worst part of his presidency, the war in Libya, who sits there saying Henry Kissinger is my best friend, who's completely unapologetic about all of that stuff. And all I'm saying is in this moment, it's really unfortunate that there isn't a loud left call on the national level among our elected officials to say, don't go right to be anti-war. Because even though the overwhelming majority of Republicans are also pro-war, overwhelming majority, and they're voting for these aid packages and happy to go start World War III too, just because one or two of them opens their mouth on television occasionally and says some anti-war stuff, they get all the credit for it. And it's exhausting to have to make this argument that the right isn't quote unquote better on war just because they have 2 or 3 actors who are willing to pantomime it. And the left has basically at this point 0 actors in terms of elected officials who are even willing to pantomime it. That stuff like that is all I'm saying. I think that is sincere. I think there's a lot of people who sincerely don't want to be going to wars, who don't want to have enlistments, who don't want to, or what do you call it? Mandatory conscription, stuff like that. That's all.
I mean, listen, child, I don't know how we got to war, but all I know is Kanye's comments were anti-Semitic. Regardless of anything, I believe that there is a resistance overall to people being able to say things pro-Palestine, and there is a difference. I think there is a difference between criticizing what Israel does in terms of its issues with Palestine. I think there's a difference between that and just spewing violent anti-Semitism. And I don't think how one is handled unfairly in terms of letting people be able to talk about or fairly criticize what Israel does don't got nothing to do with the price of tea or what's going on here with Kanye. All I know is I'm here today to say Kanye was wrong. Kanye was wrong. Kanye was wrong. Okay. That's
well, the last thing I did want to talk to you about was in your wheelhouse, your professional wheelhouse. After she kind of wraps up her segment on Kanye in that same clip, she goes on to do a bunch of quick hit stories. And I had to put your ear on this one.
I saw this headline in the Daily Mail and it was super interesting. It's basically said that slavery was back on the ballot. What? That suddenly the South is going to be voting on whether we should have slaves again? No, actually, voters in 5 states will decide whether to close a loophole in the Constitution allowing for slavery as a criminal punishment in this year's November midterm elections. What they're referring to is that involuntary servitude was made mostly illegal by the 13th Amendment in 1865, except for people who are serving out criminal sentences. Aha, so that's the slavery loophole, right? Which what they're calling it as a loophole because in prisons, you maybe have to go out and clean the highways, or you maybe have to do some labor while you are sitting in prison. And people have a lot of feelings about that, mainly people that have never been in prison and people that do not have relatives that have spent any time in prison. Now, because I have relatives that have spent time in prison and because I actually did a documentary where I went down in Florida and I met with inmates in 2018, you can still find this on YouTube, I have a very different take. This is not a slavery loophole. This is an example of, once again, the left arguing for an end to something without ever speaking to the people that will be impacted by their decision. I spoke to the people in prison and I spoke to them about this loophole, if you will. And these inmates look forward to the free, quote unquote, free labor. They actually say that because they are made to sit in a cell and do nothing all day, they look forward to be able to go outside and pick up trash.
I don't believe in consuming these people, I do not. I think it is so harmful to watch and consume these people's nonsense and legitimize it, engage their bullshit talking points. Candace Owens is not somebody who I do not interact with on material. I preemptively blocked. Listen, I could barely recognize Candace if she knocked on my door. That's how much I do not interact with this material. Let me say this. We have slavery, all right? Like, if slavery is a system by which we involuntarily hold people in bondage. We deprive them of their freedom and their personal liberties, and we make them work, perform labor for another's gain. There are over 2 million people incarcerated in America right now, 400,000 of which are being held in pretrial detention. We consume people that are incarcerated in this country, both private and public prisons, whether it be pretrial or post-trial, produce $11.6 billion in goods. And they are paid either the average state pays them between 13 and 52 cents, and 7 states just completely drop the pretense altogether and they get nothing for it. we have slavery. So
yeah,
Candace,
so that's the point that I wanted to set up for you, because the argument that Candace goes on to make is that because she has relatives in prison, she knows they're real skinny, and the real score is that people really like getting out of jail to be able to do work. And so people who are trying to shut down this program are really threatening the liberty interests of the prisoners who really would prefer to get out and work. And what was so funny to me is that I scrolled down to her comments, and not more than one person pointed out that, Miss Candace, I like you, but I think you're missing the point that people want to be able to pay more than pennies for the labor, because that incentivizes people, obviously, to pursue a mass incarceration regime where you are basically doing it for the purpose of getting free labor from folks. That went over her head completely, but I think it's a really good example for how cruel she is. These really cruel kind of policies she's able to launder in a way that goes over the head of most people, because I think, frankly, they're not being engaged with. And a lot of folks, I'm sorry, these shows are very popular. I respect your choice not to engage with them. That's not my approach, but we can leave it there.
there's
I
nothing,
really appreciate.
I think it's, for me, there's nothing new that's being said. And I don't mean for you, anybody else, if there's something to gain from there, it teaches you something about what they're talking about, how to respond to it. There's nothing, I don't need to listen to Candace to know they make those arguments. I've heard all these arguments, white supremacist arguments, white nationalist arguments, Black people making them on behalf of those white people. That's not new. That's, in fact, that status quo, those belief systems are what I'm most familiar with. That's what we've most heard. So to me, I don't need to consume it any further to know it. I'm a lawyer. I'm in court. I literally interact with the real system of it, where I'm outnumbered all of the time, to the judge, to the prosecutor, to the legislators. I know what she thinks. I know what that side of the aisle thinks. I don't got to watch it to know. I know how to respond to it, which is why I constantly do the advocacy and the work that I do. I know what the response to it is. You see, I had it the minute I seen it. I just don't need.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, Ole. I mean, it is for the benefit of the listeners that I was playing the clip, and they can find it.
No, I'm
and
just
we can put it
responding to
in
you
post.
as to
But
why.
the reality is, I consider this podcast to be an opportunity for people who don't have the time or perhaps even the interest to consume the media that's out there, to have a good sense of what is out there, what is being said, and how to best respond to it. And sometimes that means, from my perspective, having to listen to uncomfortable things. I didn't want to spend 45 minutes watching this entire clip today, nor did I want to spend all the time watching the full Kanye interview. I don't want to spend time doing any of this. I haven't watched the latest episode of that horrible Lord of the Rings show. I'm behind on Married at First Sight. There's a lot of things that I would also prefer to be doing.
No, I hear you. I just think, to your point, as you said, you said yourself, these are some of the most popular. These are highly watched shows. These are visible. Tucker Carlson's views, Candace Owens' views, what they think. We hear it. You know what I mean? It's very popular. They're around the place.
It's popular, but my concern is that we live in a bifurcated news system where there isn't the people who know enough to hate Candace Owens, and I'm talking about you or me, who are engaged in these situations more professionally. But generally speaking, I think that liberals got caught off guard in 2016 because they didn't really understand the extent to which the cultural war was shifting, and that there were a lot of platforms that were normalizing different kind of political views and had effectively done so such that many, many more people than anybody expected were willing to vote for Donald Trump. And it has only gotten exponentially more true since then. I don't ever want to be caught unawares again. And I think Candace Owens is particularly insidious because I don't think that she's stupid. And I think that because she's Black.
I thought she's a great performer. That's what I said.
Yeah. And because she's Black and because she is in this very professionalized news backdrop, has this very, professionalized setting, has a lot of power to make people feel like they can hold this particular set of views without being racist. And
I think that's exactly what the role that I think that's exactly why I said she and Kanye and these people are so incredibly harmful. And that brings me back to my position. They are being used to legitimize white nationalist talking points. That's exactly why they're harmful, because they're choosing them specifically for that reason, because this is a Black person saying it, so it's not racist because we have this Black person that said it, even though we know that the collective opinion of the larger number of Black people don't support that. So that's my original reason for why these people are so harmful in the first place.
Yeah, and in this video, in fact, she takes this moment where she was testifying before Congress for some reason, I forget what it is now. And Ted Lieu, it was about some other statements related to anti-Semitism. She said remember when she defended the idea of nationalism and said that Hitler wasn't a nationalist?
Mm-hmm.
During this hearing, Ted Lieu plays a clip of her saying Hitler wasn't a nationalist. It was a short clip. I would argue, somewhat deceptively edited to omit the question, and it made it sound like she was just purely defending Hitler. And she says to him, this is an unedited clip. Like, she basically includes this clip as evidence of the fact that people unfairly accuse folks of anti-Semitism in a weaponized way.
As I said earlier, it really culminated at that moment when I had to testify in front of Congress, when a congressman decided that I didn't even deserve to be in the room because I was so anti-Semitic. Let me remind you, here's Ted Lieu.
In congressional hearings, the minority party gets to select its own witnesses. And of all the people that Republicans could have selected, they picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking. So I'm going to play for you the first 30 seconds of a statement she made about Adolf Hitler.
I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German.
All right, so my first question is to Ms. Hirschenoff. Ms. Owens said, quote, if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. So when people try to legitimize Adolf Hitler, does that feed into white nationalist ideology?
It does, Mr. Lieu. I know that Ms. Owens distanced herself from those comments later, but we expressed great concern over the original comments.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Owens, I'm sorry. We just started recording. Would you like time to respond to that?
Yes, I think it's pretty apparent that Mr. Lieu believes that black people are stupid and will not pursue the full clip in its entirety. He purposely presented an extracted clip.
The witness will suspend for a moment. It is not proper to refer disparagingly or to a member of the committee. The witness will not do that again. Witness may continue.
Sure, even though I was called despicable.
Witness may not refer to a member of the committee as stupid.
I didn't refer to him as stupid. That's not what I said. That's not what I said at all. You didn't listen to what I said. May I continue?
Please.
As I said, he is assuming that black people will not go pursue the full 2-hour clip. And he purposefully he cut off, and you didn't hear the question that was asked of me. He's trying to present as if I was launching a defense of Hitler in Germany, when in fact, the question that was asked of me was pertaining to whether or not I believed that whether or not I believed in nationalism, and that nationalism was bad. And what I responded to was that I do not believe that we should be characterizing Hitler as a nationalist. He was a homicidal, psychopathic maniac that killed his own people. A nationalist would not kill their own people. That is exactly what I was referring to in the clip, and he purposely wanted to give you a cut-up similar to what they do to Donald Trump to create a different narrative. That was unbelievably dishonest, and he did not allow me to respond to it, which is worrisome and should tell you a lot about where people are today in terms of trying to drum up narratives. By the way, I would like to also add that I work for Prager University, which is run by an Orthodox Jew. Not a single Democrat showed up to the embassy opening in Jerusalem. I sat on a plane for 18 hours to make sure that I was there. I'm deeply offended by the insinuation of revealing that clip without the question that was asked of me.
Whew. Yep. I'm still deeply offended. And by the way, I don't know who that was that said, oh, she distanced herself from his comments. No, I didn't. I said what I meant. Adolf Hitler was not a nationalist. But of course, we know how the news operates, and they took me out of context to try to cancel Candace Owens for being anti-Semitic during the time that I was actually working for Prager University. Prager University, obviously the namesake being Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager is Jewish, openly Jewish. We've talked about his faith.
And because I think that people misjudge her, I think that she did come out ahead in the optics battle in that hearing, because people were not prepared to tag her with the things that she really does say, the vile things that she really does say and commit to, like moments like this. So I really appreciate you coming on and being able to give your always punchy and accurate response on criminal justice matters and the world beyond. Let the people know where they can find you on the internet, on your Substack, and anywhere else I might have missed.
You can find me on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and everywhere at Miss Olurin, MSOLURIN. And you should subscribe to my Substack, Olurinati. I release an essay every month.
Thank you so much, Ole. As you
Thank
know,
you for
this is
having me.
it's always a pleasure. Bad Faith Podcast airs twice a week. This is a free Thursday episode. If you want to have additional content, you know you can subscribe at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month and get an episode on Monday as well. And as always, I will be seeing you after the show tonight at some time, usually between 7 and 9, on Call-In to discuss. Take care of yourselves and keep the faith. Hey, YouTube. Thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.